As crazy as it may sound, the opening weekend of baseball has officially came and went. And you know what that means. Matt and I have 10 must-add players for you guys on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ane, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ane. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below, subscribe to the channel, and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio end of things on a platform like Apple or Spotify, that allows 5-star ratings and reviews. We would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And guys, join us on the Subtext platform. It's that time of year where we're doing these waiver wire episodes, and you are going to get these players ranked, a little, description about each of them, and just, kind of why we did it that way. You're going to get those, prospect call-ups that are going to be coming soon right to your phone, through text messaging alerts. Nobody else in the industry is offering that, and you're going to get those notifications before anybody else. So join us on Subtext. The link is in our bio, wherever you're listening or watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So check that out on FanDuel today. Matt, we're in the regular season, man. It's crazy. We got some great names for the people out there today that, and honestly, it's no joke. I want to stress this at the top. This is the time of year when you probably want to be the most active on the waiver wire. It's the time of year where you find those gems, those guys that we kind of, did or didn't expect. Some of them we did expect, but aren't widely owned yet. And Matt, speaking of that, who do we got up first today, my brother?
All right, we got Mr. Spencer Torkelson of the Detroit Tigers. And, he's just having a nice first week. I don't know how long this is going to last, but I will say this. It's nice. I'm getting up his Savant page, but he's having a great week. Look, he's so far on the year, when the year is like 3 games, 9 at bats, 3 runs, a double, a bomb, a rib, a stolen base, batting .444. Also, for those points league guys, 5 walks to 4 strikeouts. Now, look, I don't know if he's like this all year play. Possibly he had, prospect pedigree and things like that. But what I am going to do is, if he's out there, I'm going to add him. And reason being is, you got to ride the hot hand at least, right? Like, what's the worst that's going to happen, right? He kind of just falls off the wagon. By the end of the week, whatever, who cares? He's 29% owned, so he's out there in 71% of leagues. And quite honestly, just ride the hot hand. And then he does. You can literally just do one of these, like real quick, and just say, all right, see you later. And okay. I'd love
drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot.
That's it.
Drop it like it's hot.
So, it is what it is. Spencer Torkelson is a guy with a little bit of upside for the season, but fully for the next week, at least, you're going to ride that out.
Yeah, man, I hear you. I think I have a little bit more optimism here with Torque. You kind of mentioned the prospect pedigree. He was one of the top hitting prospects, in all of baseball a couple of years ago. And once, I've been preaching this, so I'm going to continue to preach it. With prospects, growth isn't always linear, right? Progression isn't always linear. Sometimes, it takes a while. Once again, my mantra has been we were spoiled with Acuna and Tatis and Soto. And it doesn't always work like that. They don't always come up and click, So Torkelson's still only 25. He's shown in spring training that, hey, listen, pay attention to me here. And I was talking about it. I moved him up my rankings. I think by the end, things were said and done. I had him around 13, 12 at first base. He hit 340 over the spring with 5 home runs, 4 walks to 11 strikeouts. Looked really good. I know the Tigers themselves haven't been great yet, but this is a pretty good lineup. Riley Green and Gleyber Torres is hitting a little bit. They have a bunch of good kids over there that can figure it out, and I think that lineup could be a lot better than we realize. And then even look back to Torkelson's 2023. He had 88 runs, 31 homers, 94 RBIs, and he hit 233. But once again, that was as a 23-year-old in his a real first big showing in the major leagues, right? So I think Torkelson's easily a 30 home run guy. If this team is any good, he could have a lot of RBIs. I think he could hit easily between 240, 250. And if this plate discipline keeps up, man, there's a lot of upside here with Torkelson. So as Matt said, the ownership, 29% on Yahoo. I'd go out there and snag him. You need a corner infielder. You need a first baseman in some of those deeper leagues. Hey, listen, even if you got somebody you're ready to dump, somebody that hasn't been doing anything for you, I would take the stab at Torkelson because I do believe there's a lot of upside here. And that's kind of actually a great transition into this next guy when you're talking about upside. Let's talk about Christian Campbell of those Boston Red Sox. I mean, this kid has been absolutely exciting so far, looked really bad in, spring training, but, has found his way so far here in the bigs. If my computer, Matt, any chance you got his stats pulled up there? Because my computer is being real pain. Okay, I got it. So he's actually 5 for 10 so far with a homer, only 1 RBI and 1 run, on that 1 homer he hit, but second base eligible, 41% owned on Yahoo. He was the 7th overall prospect according to MLB.com coming into the year. The kid's just going out there and hitting. And if he's going to stay locked in like this, man, the sky's the limit. He's got 5 tools. He's got pop. He's got speed. They're moving him around in the lineup, right? He hit 6th in the lineup the first 2 games. They moved him down to 7th in, the third game. But, hey, the third game's where he hit the home run. So as long as Campbell's out there performing, he should be probably universally owned, I'd say, especially with the second base eligibility. It's crazy. I love Christian Campbell. I think, once again, this might be one of those pause the podcast moments, especially if you need second base and Campbell's available in your league. Absolute must pick up kind of guy. Love what Campbell brings to the table.
Yeah, no, I'm on board. I'll be straight up. Like, Campbell's been absolutely monstrous. The prospect pedigree is there. There's a reason why he's the 6th overall prospect. And look, the things you really look for in a young hitting prospect is the plate discipline, and that's the one thing that's really just like kind of blown me away. Yeah, the power showed, but the first 2 games he didn't hit a bomb. He just had really good plate discipline, and that's what I'm really liking about it. That just says, hey, you can make it as a hitter in this league. So I'm really excited for the kid. The fact that he's not as owned as he should is mind-blowing. Add him now because, quite honestly, it's just you're doing yourself a disservice at the end of the day if you don't. But this next guy here, I feel is even higher.
Can I say one more thing about Campbell? Sure. Even though he had a horrible spring, right? He still had 10 walks to 18 strikeouts. So he was doing something right. Mm-hmm. And he just locked in. I think I said it before, we even got into the regular season. If Campbell's a guy that locks in, there's a lot of upside. But I digress, Matt. Let's talk about this next guy.
All right. We're going to be talking about, I think, the number 1 ad of the whole show, in my opinion. And that's Christian Encarnacion-Strand of the Cincinnati Reds. He is 42% owned. And quite honestly, if you haven't already, you need to, because he is going to be legit 100% owned by the end of next week. Everything is kind of showing up this year. Look, we expected this last year, but unfortunately got hit in the hand, had to get surgery, and it kind of ended the season really quick and short before things could really get going. But even last year, he did show up. And, even though that batting average wasn't looking hot through 116 at-bats, he still had a little bit. And right before he got hurt, it was getting going. But now, boom, we're hitting 500 through the 3 games he's played. He's hit a bomb already. Everything about it is just saying, we're ready for it. Like he's here. He's getting ready to make a name in this league for himself, and only has 1 strikeout through those 8 at bats. That's huge. So let's see what he could do. And then, even through this small sample size, I know it's being a little hyperbolic, but what's under the hood, but just so you can understand what's going on in the world of Christian Encarnacion-Strand at 42% owned. Ex-Woba is sitting at 538. The expected batting average is sitting at 460. So it's right on par. The slug is at 803. His average exit velocity is sitting at 96.7 miles per hour. Yes, 96.7 miles per hour. That's monstrous. Making contact at a great rip because he's making hard contact nearly 60% of the time, by 57.1% of the time, barreling 14.3% of the time, and just not striking out right now. If all goes right with Christian Encarnacion-Strand, I will not be surprised if we're talking about him next year as one of the elite first baseman picks for next year. It's the start. This is the guy that I think makes the difference for the rest of the league and is the difference between winning a championship or not. And it's coming off your waiver. So add Christian Encarnacion-Strand now. And before I allow Dom to give his side of the story and probably drool just as much as I do, you'll just have to wait for that coming up next.
And all right, guys, March Madness is officially here, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Guys, so easy over there picking your favorites. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it super easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. And you're going to want to stay in on the action with tournament games happening almost every day. There's always something exciting to bet on. And guys, it's just make it super easy and fast. That FanDuel app, so simple to use. And when I win, I get paid instantly. There's no waiting around at all. So just visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoop action all tournament long. Once again, that's FanDuel.com. And, while March Madness is here, we're in the middle of it, you might as well take advantage, guys. So get on that now. And then, folks, I just want to mention it again one more time. To give us a chance on the Subtext platform. Do Subtext an in-depth, personalized experience. You can get those text messaging alerts right to your phone. Nobody else in the industry is offering that right now. And you're going to get those prospect call-ups right away. So many big prospects out there from Roman Anthony to Andrew Painter and so many more. When they get called up, you're going to want them right on your team. And through Subtext, you're going to get those alerts. And, even with these waiver wire episodes, we got these names for you. Matt and I are going to send you out ranks with them, what the order you should pick them up in, a little bit of details on why we think you should pick them up. Just so much more than we can offer in these 30-minute episodes. So if you are interested in joining us on Subtext, the link is in the bio. If you're listening, watching, it's available on any of our social media platforms. And all right, Matt, let me jump in here on Strand. Absolutely love him. Matt and I both had him ranked well inside of our top 10s at first base. I think we had him around 8-7, somewhere around that range. We just don't know. We can't explain to you why the industry was a little bit lower on him. The opportunity was pretty much there when Steer got hurt. There was really no reason not to play a guy like Strand. The prospect pedigree is amazing. He has shown power. He has shown average. He's shown great discipline. Once again, another guy who's only 25 years old. There's just so many good pickups right now, and this is the time you take advantage of it, right? Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to pick up every single one of these guys. Strand is definitely a huge priority at being only 42% owned on Yahoo. Plays in that, small park in Cincinnati. We love that, in a good lineup. He's hitting fourth in that lineup now. Strand literally, he started off seventh on the first game, moved up to sixth the second game, and he is now hitting fourth today. So there's no reason not to go out there and get a guy like Strand. He's going to be absolutely dominant as long as he can stay healthy. I don't see no reason why he won't be one of the better first basemen for fantasy baseball purposes. Let's move on to this next guy. Got another Boston Red Sox for you. It's Willier Abreu, right? And we talked about him a little bit after opening day. He had that monster game. He has just carried it along, right? 6 for 9 so far this season, Willier Abreu, with 4 runs, 2 homers, and 5 RBIs. I don't think he's going to be this good all season long, but he's a kid who is, hit in the minors. He hit a little bit in the majors last year. He was kind of a waiver wire guy, kind of a little bit of up and down. He's up to 50% owned on Yahoo. And I think this is the thing in Boston, right? Everybody on that Boston roster knows there's a bunch of young prospects waiting in the wings. You got the Roman Anthonys, the Marcelo Mayers, and they have other great prospects down there too. So guys like Willier Abreu and Ceddanne Rafaela and all those guys on that Boston team are going to have to hit to keep their jobs. And Willier Abreu said, yes, I will hit to keep my job, of course, right? So I mentioned, he's got a little bit of pop, a little bit of speed. He's not like a super 5-tool guy. He's more of like, I want to say, if everything works out, could be like a 20-20-ish kind of guy. But that's, once again, best case scenario for a guy like Willier Abreu. Hey, the lineup's good. He's been hitting 6th in that lineup, or it's been moved up to 6th in that lineup as of late. I think he's a little bit of a, I don't want to say he's a super must add, but he's a kind of juice the orange kind of guy, get what you can out of him and, kind of ride the wave. And he's not somebody like I'm going to be afraid to drop in like 2 or 3 weeks if I pick him up and he's not hitting, right? Might not do that with the Campbells and the Strands, and that type of scenario. But Willier Abreu, if you need an outfielder, 5 outfielder league and he's still sitting out there, if you're in a deeper league, you got a couple extra bench spots, you could definitely add him because there is upside here. But just, once again, not somebody I'm rushing to the waiver wire to go grab. But, he can contribute for sure.
Hey, he's another guy that's like, I'm not excited to add, but you have to. You said it well. He's a ride the wave because he's going to eventually fall off, and I don't think he's going to be an everyday contributor for the rest of the season, in all honesty. It is what it is. Quite honestly, I'm not really an Abreu fan. I think eventually he's going to lose out to one of those prospects because eventually they're going to want to see what they have and see if they can get more efficiency out of there than what they're getting. The thing is, he just has a really good glove, which is what's going to keep him out on the field. But let's move on. Let's talk about Colin Manzardo, the Cleveland Guardians. So Manzardo, after getting traded from Tampa over to Cleveland, you know, took him a little bit to get going, but that first minor league season when he was in there was looking good. Got the call up. Didn't really perform to, full standard through the 145 at bats, but there's only 5 home runs, batting 235. But this year is off to a hot start. 29% owned, I might add. Through the 6 at bats, he's had, 2 runs, a double, a triple, a bomb, 4 ribs, 3 walks to a strikeout, batting 500, OBP of 667, a slug of 1500, and an OPS of 2.167. Like, dude's looking stellar. And all the underlying stats is kind of like supporting this as well in the short sample size as well. X-WOB is at 494, X-batting average is at 284, X-slug is at 666, a little mark of the beast. Average exit velocity sitting at 91 miles an hour, which is stellar, barreling 20% of the time. Even creating hard contact at 40% of the time, a little bit less than what I'd like. So we'll see if the power is able to stick or if it could just be consistent. Launch angle sitting pretty nicely, but I'll tell you what, he's not chasing, he's not whiffing, he's not striking out, and he's walking. Those are the big things right there. Points leagues values for sure because of the plate discipline as of right now. I'm going to ride the hot hand. I don't know if he has all season long play, but the prospect pedigree is there. He's a guy that showed power and could hit for a decent average and things like that. Just need to see more from him. Ultimately, add him now and see if you can go. I mean, guys have gone down already, unfortunately. You look at guys like Lowe that, I thought we would have got at least one more game, but he decided to follow the Royce Lewis, pattern. And, it is what it is. So with Colin Manzardo, I mean, you need a bat. Draft him and see if you can get there if you couldn't get Christian Encarnacion-Strand.
Yeah, man, Manzardo's not one of my favorites today. We got to kind of throw him on here because of the prospect pedigree. I mean, he's only played 2 games so far, and the first game was where he put up all the stats. Second game went 0 for 2. I got him behind Strand and Torkelson. Probably my least favorite bat out of the 5 we talked about today. But if you missed out on the Strands and the Torkelsons and you need the first baseman, Manzardo's not a bad option. He's got a little bit of pop. He could hit for a little bit of average. They moved him up to 3rd in the lineup, so there's RBI potential there too. Just like I said, not my favorite of the group today, but definitely somebody that is addable. A worst case scenario, if you're in a shallower league, you throw him on your watch list and you kind of see how the thing develops. Because as Matt mentioned here, there is a lot of upside in this young bat who came over here in the trade and is getting the playing time he deserves. So let's see where thing goes with Manzardo. Let's get into the pitching though, man. I'm actually super psyched to talk about the pitching today, right? Let's get into our first guy. Let's get into somebody that we love around this podcast. Let's talk about Jeffrey Springs. And if Jeffrey Springs is back, man, are we lucky? Or if you have him, you're lucky, right? 46% owned. Jeffrey Springs has had a rough run around here. A couple years ago, looked like he was going to be one of the best, starting pitchers out there, had a strong season, came back the next year, looked great through 3 starts, got hurt. Then it took him a year to get back, and he's back, came back at I believe the tail end of last year, at a couple of mixed result starts. Little bit of a mixed bag in spring training, but hey, Jeffrey Springs' first start, 6 innings, 9 strikeouts, didn't give up a run, 0.67 whip, got the win. It was against Seattle, not one of the better lineups in the league, and it was in their park, one of the better pitching parks in the league in Seattle. But hey, those are still the results you want to see from a guy like Jeffrey Springs. And if he has, even 75%, 80% of the guy he was 2-3 years ago, top 40 starting pitcher, I think I'm even selling him short there. But man, if you were able to get Jeffrey Springs at the end of your draft and or even able to still pick him up off waiver wires, he might be my favorite arm of the day. I'll give it away. I mean, this guy is a beast.
You're welcome. I told everybody.
I was a Jeffrey Springs guy before you. I was one of my boys.
Yeah, but this year you were lower, much lower.
I was a little lower.
Much lower. I had him in like the top 50. You had him like all the way.
I had him around there, maybe like 60, 65.
More like 70. I have your rankings, but yes.
I'll pull it up.
Jeffrey Springs, I think, is back. I think, what we were seeing in spring was probably him working on something. And that's what was, not reflecting on the stat sheets. But now that we're in season, if things weren't working, he's probably not going to roll it out there until he pretty much masters whatever he's working on. So, it's exciting. I'm excited to have him. Obviously, still keep in mind that there's going to be blow up games because they are playing in a AAA park. So it's not going to be I don't think like a top 30 performance, but top 40, top 50 pitcher for sure. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about an electric young pitcher that I think could possibly have some long term value, and that's coming up next. So as I mentioned right before the break, we have a nice young pitcher that I like this year. It's Jack Leiter of the Texas Rangers. So I'm loving him right now. Fastball sitting at 97.3 miles an hour. He's getting decent movement on his fastball and his breaking pitches. And he's looking real sharp out there. First outing was pretty stellar. I'm not going to lie. He posted a 1.8 ERA through 5 innings, got 4 strikeouts, kept the whip at 1-2, which that part's a little disturbing, but I'll let that pass. He's young, and he's a guy that wants to strike out people, so we might see a higher whip in his first year, and that's fine. FIP was sitting at 171, which is really nice to see. It means that things are kind of on par. You look under the hood too. The xERA is sitting at 298. So yeah, maybe a run higher, but still that's great production. I'm loving the fact that the average exit velocity is sitting down at 86 miles an hour, which just means he's suppressing hard contact. Even though he's giving up hard contact at a decent rip at 26.7% of the time, he's suppressing it with ground balls as well. So he's not allowing guys, even when they make hard contact, not strong enough, and also getting it to go to the floor. Also getting good extension on his pitches. Things are looking great. Just need to, get him to not walk guys as much and, suppress that and, do a little bit more strikeouts. We'll see. The fastball is really looking nice. The sinker's filthy too, because that's sitting at 96.7 miles per hour. That's just becoming unhittable right now this year too. So let's see what happens. I'm adding him. I'm going to see where this journey takes us with Leiter because, there's going to be ups and downs with a young pitcher like Leiter, but at the same time, there's going to be probably some really big games as well. He's sitting at literally 45% owned. So he's out there in more than 50% of leagues. I'm going to try and get him wherever I can, honestly.
Absolute must add. Yeah, Matt, you hit the nail on the head. This kid is one of the best pitching prospects in all of baseball. I mean, he got moved down over the last couple of years because of poor performance in the minors, but the talent was always there. Coming out of Vanderbilt, I actually, I didn't realize we were talking about Jack Leiter. So I have a Jack Leiter Vanderbilt jersey. It would have been great to wear that because I've loved Jack Leiter for a long time. If you don't know who Jack Leiter is, his dad is former MLB All-Star Al Leiter. He learned from the best. He's been around the game his whole life. Jack has. The kid's going to be really good if he can figure it out. And the first start looked really good. I watched a little bit of it. It was only 5 innings, but man, he only gave up 1 run. 5 hits, 1 walk, right? So you love to see the control. He was dotting that fastball. He was hitting 99, on the regular. He could really keep batters off balance, right? His next start is against Cincinnati in Cincinnati, so it's going to be a tough one for him. Kind of is going to be a proving moment. I think we pick him up. If you're in a tough spot by the time the start rolls around, you could feel free to bench him, right? I'm not going to hold that against you. But let's see where it goes, because if that starts really good, he's gonna be swooped up in an instant. So I'm picking him up now. I'm picking Jack Leiter up preemptively, 45% owned on Yahoo. I'm gonna ride the wave. I'll bench him if that next start, if my ERA and WHIP calls for it. But I'm gonna ride the wave. I'm not gonna drop him even if he goes out there, gives up 5-6 runs. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna hold on because I like the way this first start looked. The stuff is really good, and we're gonna hope for good results going forward with the young star Jack Leiter here. Let's move on from a young star to a former star. Let's talk about Luis Severino. And I'll tell you this, I did not expect the Oakland pitchers to come out and, look as good as they have, right? Sevy was somebody I kind of liked coming into draft season. I feel like I talked myself out of him. Had an up and down year with the Mets last year. He was good for stints. I feel like if I remember correctly, towards the end of the year, he started to sizzle out, and that's where, we might have dropping him. But hey, he might be able to ride the wave again here in the first half with Sevy. 45% owned, same as Jack Leiter. His first start was against Seattle, same as Jeffrey Springs. 6 innings, got 6 strikeouts, no earned runs, had a 1.17 whip. His next start's against the Cubs. Not my favorite guy. He probably does fall somewhere in the middle of this lineup of pitchers. Sevy, he has upside, man. He could be that K per 9 guy. He can give you a 3.5, 3.6 ERA with a decent whip, right? And if you're getting a guy like that off the waiver wire, don't forget, he might not win too many games. He might not be good towards the end of the season, but I do like me some Luis Severino. Not the worst option off the waiver wire as far as pitchers go.
Yeah, I mean, he's at least proven that he could be competent, and that's the part that I want to see from him. And if he's not going to tank me, I'm going to add him because there's guys going down left and right. Like I just got the alert that Scherzer's going on the IL. That's wonderful. It's just injuries are going to happen. He's a guy that at least you know what you can roll him out there and say, okay, I might not get creamed, and if it's a good matchup, I might actually get like a nice outing from him essentially. So I'm going to try and add him and just see if I can kind of just get a little safety in my in my rotation essentially and roll him out when I can against good matchups. So this next guy here, Zach Littell of the Tampa Bay Rays, had a nice outing. I don't know if I'm really like a big fan of him, but hey, he had a good outing. We need to highlight him, and if we can get some production out of him, I will. So he pitched about 6 innings in his first start outing, 7 strikeouts, a 1.5 ERA, gave him about 4 hits, and had a whip of like 0.66. Great outing. He showed like last year he could have a good, put up good numbers. Finished with a 3.63 ERA through 156 innings with 141 strikeouts and a whip of 1.247. Am I counting on him for, value or being a long-term solution? No. Look, the next matchup is either coming up against the Pirates or it's coming up against the Rangers. If he's going up against the Pirates, I'll roll him out there. They haven't said when he's starting again. But if he's going up against the Rangers, I might bench him. But let's see what happens. I mean, hey, if he's able to string 2 good starts together, I might ride him while he's hot and while things are kind of moving and grooving. And then the second he kind of dies, I'll move on. But, I'm not, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan. He's probably my lowest priority guy out here. But Zach Littell is somebody that, at least in a good matchup, I'll feel all right rolling him out.
Yeah, man. You know what the funny thing is like you mentioned, he was solid last year. Zachy boy there. He 29 starts last year, 3.63 ERA, 156 innings, 141 strikeouts, 1.24 WHIP. Deep league cut. I'm not going out there and picking up in shallow leagues, but right now, Littell's only owned in 7% of leagues, man. That's AL onlys where he's available. You're talking 15 mans where he's available. He's serviceable. I'll say this. There's going to be the bad starts when a guy has a 3.63 ERA. That means, for the most part, he's solid, but he'll have some bad starts here and there. The 1.24 whip's not killing you. He's not super far under that K per 9. For a guy that's 7% owned, I feel like at least 30-40% owned, he could be jumped up to. Deep league cuts, guys. And that's for our deep league players here at the end that are still hanged in here. Let's move on to this last guy, probably a deeper league cut too. Eric Fetty, somebody who wasn't bad last year. First start looked pretty solid. He gave you 6 innings. He got the win. Only 2 strikeouts. Fetty's not a big strikeout guy. 1.5, he only had 1 run and had a 0.33 whip, right? So, Fetty came back over to the States, after I believe he went over to Japan for a year or 2, to figure things out after he had previously been in the majors, right? And like I said, last year he was pretty solid, last year total he had a 3.30 ERA through 31 starts, 177 innings, 154 strikeouts, and he had a 1.16 whip. So you're talking about another pitcher, the name isn't blowing you away. He's 24% owned on Yahoo. Him and Littell could both be useful in deeper leagues. There could be a point where, they could be universally owned. This is why you go out there and you pick guys like Fetty and Littell up. And, you leave them at the end of your roster in those deeper leagues. In shallower leagues, we're going to have to see 2, 3, 4 starts from guys like this before we're talking about them and like your 10, 8-man, stuff like that. But, hey, 12-man league, deep benches. You're talking about an 8-man bench where you're drafting like closer to 300 players. Yeah, maybe he belongs at the end of that. But anything deeper than that, for sure, Fetty and Littell could be useful.
Yeah, definitely deep leagues. You never like to see a pitcher that goes 6 innings and then only has 2 Ks. Yes, even if the ERA is fantastic, I'd rather take a higher swing with somebody that has high strikeout potential than that. Unless at that point, like I'm probably not rolling this dude out unless I need to get my ERA down, like literally like a tenth of a point. Then we can probably talk about it. But Fetty is probably somebody that again, like if you're not in a deep league, it's not going to matter for us at the end of the day. So it is what it is. Surprisingly,
more of a stabilizer. He's like that, like he kind of talked about it, right? Because not every, even people that play in like straight roto, where you're just taking all the stats from the whole year collectively, right? Fetty's a guy who had a 3.3 ERA last year. He's going to suppress the runs. He's a kind of almost like in that type of format, like a roto format. He's just like a set it and forget it kind of guy. He'll have a blow up start here or there, but for the most part, he's going to suppress the runs. And if you're talking like, head to head, category leagues where Matt and I specialize in, and you're in a shallow format, you're not looking his way right now. Yeah, like I said, if he keeps the stats up though, because 3.30 ERA and 1.16 WHIP is useful for a whole season. Would love to see Fetty to be able to do it again, but we're not looking his way in those shallower leagues right now. It's more of a deeper league cut, as Matt mentioned.
For sure. But guys, look, we're here. We're in season. We're ready and we're rocking and rolling and we're excited. I can't believe we're at Waiver Wire episode already 1. So look, stick around. Be with us all season. We're going to get you over that finish line, get you that championship, and tell a friend. Bring tomorrow. Bring a friend. Say, yo, you need to listen to this. I know you don't want them to have the same information, but you're only as good as the information that's out there. And if you're just beating guys to the cut, then yeah, that's the way to do it. So bring a friend, and share us, and then we'll keep growing, and we'll be able to keep doing this every day. So guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, and bring that friend. And when you're done, check out our boy Sully over at Locked On MLB, and he puts on a really good show covering really great, league as a whole. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Peace.
Yeah.